The markets are pretty high up there. We need to talk about where they could go from here. I am Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education, and I asked the weather, what is December like in Australia? And it responded, I don't know. We're going to take a look at the economic calendar to see what's coming up for us for the week, and then we're also going to take a technical analysis view of the markets, of the SPY, and of the Qs and provide some commentary for that. I'll also tell you how I'm playing this market through the Patreon. You can find that link down in the description, as well as my options course, and then also Moo app. I'll tell you about that later. In the meantime, let's get right over to trading economics so we can see what's coming up for us this week. So Monday, November the 27th, new home sales and building permits telling us about the housing market, and then we also have on Tuesday at 10 a.m. a conference board consumer confidence. That's going to be huge for us because that could tell us a lot about how we could expect the strength of consumer to hold out for us, if it's something that's going to remain strong through the end of 2023 and into 2024, or if it's something that's going to start slowing things down on us and going to change things up for the economy and likely for the markets should we see that dip too much, or if we see it going up, a rise in consumer confidence can be very good for the markets, can be an upward catalyst. If we see a strengthening of that number right now, the consensus is down below what it was previously for October. So November's numbers, we'll see how they come in. So let's scroll down because we have GDP coming up at 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday. That's going to be huge for us when we watch that one come out. Not as big as the advanced estimate, but the second estimate that we get, what we want to see is will we stick around that 4.9 number, or will we get revised up or down, because that's going to tell us as we get more information about the GDP numbers coming out. So absolutely huge to watch that come out. And then we have on Thursday, we have personal income and outlays with the PCE reports coming out. Should be something pretty good for us based on what we saw in CPI and PPI coming out earlier in the month. And this is on Thursday instead of Friday because it is the end of November. And then when we move from there into Friday, which is December 1st, can you believe that? The start of December. Hence my joke at the beginning of this video talking about December. My goodness, this year's moving right along very quickly for us. So when you look at this, we get the ISM numbers coming out. That's going to be big for us. And we also have Powell's speech coming out at 11 a.m. on a Friday at 11 a.m. So we would be watching for that. Let's go from there, and we're going to move into the technical analysis onto the charts. So I'm going to bring up the S&P first. When we look at this, and you can see the formation that we had going on, and we just blasted outside of that thing, rocketed upward. And you can see when you look down here for the RSI, we're up above 70, so we're in the overbought territory. And that does not necessarily mean that we sell off. Now, when you look at the candles that we do get some narrow bodied candles here, some wicks going either way. These doji candles, this very narrow range that we had on Friday, which was a shorter day of much lower volume, which is very typical, not only because of the fewer trading hours, but just because of the holiday season in general. So not necessarily a big week for volume historically, and this year proved to be no different. Well, as we get into this week, I think it's going to be a little bit more telling. And I think based on what we see with the overbought there, and if we go out to the weekly chart, what we see in the weekly chart is that we're not in overbought yet. So there is still more room to the upside on this thing, but it is possible that we get a near-term pullback, maybe at the beginning of the week, maybe the end of the week, or maybe throughout the entire week. We're going to have to watch and see. Now, I will say, let me bring this down for just one moment. So I will say that should we see any sort of pullback, I think it's going to be temporary for us. I think that December is going to be a very good month for us as well. And then we're going to have to see how January shapes up. I will make a separate video on how I see the month of December going, but I will say for right now that I do see a near-term pullback coming for us sometime soon, followed by wherever we find support. And let's go back and look at those support levels. I do think that we're going to bounce healthily off that and put in a new higher high. And I think that we're also going to have a higher low coming off of this. So let's go back to the daily chart for just a moment on the SPY as we look at this one. And I do think that we could easily pull back to 450, and down below there we have room to about 445, and down below there could take us all the way down to 440. So that's what we're looking at for support. And I do think that this white trend line that we have here will be that ultimate support that we see in the near term before we start to rally back up. Should we come down that low in the first place, I don't know that we do come down that low. That'd be losing like 3 to 4% from where we're at. That'd feel pretty painful for us. It could be a little bit of panic, which could create some pretty incredible opportunities. So we're going to have to watch for that with the SPY. And then with the Qs moving over here, very similar chart, high top wick here, which could signal that we're going to start selling off. We're going to have to wait and see. Right now, still kind of trading sideways. We have just a little tiny bit of bearish divergence in the Qs as we watch this play out, that right now the prices are sort of rising over the past couple days, whereas we have the momentum sort of falling, but we're still, even though we're above 70, a little bit overbought, it is still in bullish territory. So I don't think that this is something that's going to completely reverse on us. And if we go out to the weekly chart on this one to see the momentum on it for a longer term trend, we are not in that overbought status yet like we see going back through May and into June, and then finally into July, where we finally started selling off and trading sideways on this thing. So we still have room to the upside on this thing, and we do have a high top wick on this one, so that is something that could still be signaling that we will pull back in the near term. So short term, maybe a little bit of bearishness. Over a longer time horizon, after we find support and retest it, that I think will form a higher low than what we saw the last time. Most definitely, I think that's one of the safer calls that we have, along with some caveats that go along with that sort of statement. I do think that we bounce at the very most off this trend line that we have down here. I don't know that we'll pull back that deeply into that territory. Again, this is another one of those 3 or 4% that we could possibly give back at most before we find support, and then we start rallying. I think that we can continue to put on higher highs from where we're at right now, and I do think that we end this year on a pretty nice note, or at least we go much higher than this previous peak that we saw. And let's zoom out a little bit more to see where the other peak was. It is possible that we put in that higher high, that we break that 400 solidly in the Q. So we're going to have to watch that one. And the SPYs, I don't think for the SPY that's going to be a whole lot different. So for SPY, where do we peak out? We peaked out at about 467. I think it is possible that we get there again, and we're going to have to see if we do break up above that. So that's 3 to 4% up above where we closed, or where we peaked out, I should say, going all the way back to Monday, the 3rd of January of 2022, before we started selling off throughout 2022. So we're going to have to wait and see how those highs play out for us. So what I can see for this week coming up, it should be a good week for us. We do want to watch consumer confidence. I think that's going to be very impactful, those GDP numbers, and then also personal income and outlays, which come out on Thursday, I think are the 3 biggest catalysts that we have this week. And then we have Powell speaking on Friday after we get the most recent PCE report. So that can be something that's also very impactful and something that we should watch out for. As far as the markets go, I do think that there's a near-term pullback. I do think that it is possible that we put another 3 to 4% on top of where we currently are, moving upward from there between now and the end of the year. So I think that we're going to have some pretty incredible opportunities coming up after we pull back, find where support is, and then I think whenever we start to pivot from there, I think we're going to start putting in another higher high from the most recent high that we've had, and then we take on the all-time highs that we've had in the SPY and in the Qs, and then we're going to have to replan as we get closer to those prices. Now, I said that I would tell you how to find out where I'm playing this market. You can go over to the Patreon. That link is down in the description. You can see my buys and sells over at the Discord that's over there, and be a member of my Discord community, which I participate in throughout the trading week. And you can talk to me and my community members that are over there. And then I also have my options course. If you want to learn how to amplify your portfolio using the power of options, that course is being developed. That's over there at the Patreon as well, and it is free to all paying members of the Patreon. And then there's also Moomoo. You can go and check that out, not only to get 5.1% APY, but also if you check out this spot right here, you get up to 15 free stocks with a qualified deposit as well. Thank you guys for watching this video. I am Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education. Remember, my friends, that learning is earning, and we'll see you in the next video.